Welcome back, everybody. Get ready for another deep dive into some incredible NBA action.
Yeah.
We're talking about two games from the East that had us on the edge of our seats right down to the buzzer.
It's true. These were some good games.
First up, we got the Bucks going head-to-head with the Nets, and let me tell you, the Nets snatched that victory right from under the Bucks' noses.
Yeah, it was a close one.
113 to 110. I mean, talk about a nail-biter. What stood out to you in that game?
Well, I think what's interesting about the Nets' win is it wasn't just about the final score.
Yay.
It was their strategy early on in the game. They built up this substantial lead, like in the first half,
Mm-hmm.
and that really put the pressure on the Bucks to play catch up. And it's hard when you're constantly trying to close that gap.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, we're talking about the Bucks here. We're talking about Giannis, who is known for putting up some serious numbers.
Right.
I mean, did he just, have an off night?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because statistically, Giannis had a great game.
Oh, wow.
He had 28 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists.
Yeah.
But the Bucks really struggled to find consistent scoring from other players.
So it wasn't a Giannis problem.
Yeah, no, not really. It was more of a
A team problem.
yeah, it was a team issue for sure.
Okay, so it sounds like teamwork was the real MVP for the Nets.
I would agree with that.
So break it down for us. Who really shined for them?
So for the Nets, I mean, obviously you have Kevin Durant, always a force to be reckoned with, led the team with 35 points, added another 10 rebounds and 5 assists to his stat line.
Wow.
I mean, he was just like everywhere on the court.
Yeah.
But then you have Dennis Schroeder, who I think really surprised a lot of people with his performance.
Yeah.
He put up 34 points, but he also had 11 assists,
Wow. 11 assists.
which means he was really creating opportunities, scoring opportunities for his teammates, kept the Bucks defense guessing.
Yeah.
And then you have Cameron Johnson, who also had a solid game, 26 points, 3 rebounds.
Wow. So a real team effort there.
Very much so.
Okay, so we're hearing a lot about scoring, but in a game that close, defense has got to play a role, especially in those final moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, in those final moments, the Nets defense was like a wall. They really clamped down on the Bucks, shut down any attempts to take the lead.
Yeah.
Giannis, I mean, even Giannis, with all his power and skill,
Yeah.
couldn't score on that crucial drive to the basket in the last seconds.
Oh, man.
And that's what sealed the deal for the Nets.
I mean, can you imagine being in that arena, the tension, the energy? Did you think the Bucks could pull it off? I mean,
I was on the edge of my seat, for sure.
okay. All right, well, let's switch gears for a second and talk about the Heat versus the Pacers.
Okay.
Now, this game, this was a completely different story.
Totally different story.
The Pacers dominated the Heat, 128 to 115.
Wow.
It wasn't even close. What was going on there?
Well, the Pacers, what really impressed me was their offense. I mean, just their well-rounded offense.
Right.
They had multiple players putting up big numbers, but their defense, too, was really on fire.
Oh, really?
They were limiting the Heat's scoring chances. They were forcing turnovers.
So a good game all around.
Yeah, I mean, they were clicking on all cylinders.
So give us the rundown. Who are the big names for the Pacers in this one?
Well, hands down, was Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
He had 33 points, 15 assists.
15 assists.
15 assists. And 5 rebounds. I mean, the guy was everywhere on the court.
Oh, wow.
But then you had Benedict Mathurin, who also had a really strong game, 21 points, 12 rebounds.
Oh.
And then you had Miles Turner kind of holding down the fort there, 17 points, 9 rebounds.
Wow.
I mean, just a really solid performance from the Pacers overall.
So what about the Heat? I mean, did they just have an off day or?
I mean, they did have some decent individual performances. Yeah. Jimmy Butler had 25.6 rebounds. Tyler Herro had 24 points, 5 assists.
Yeah.
But, I think the Pacers, their fast-paced offense and their really smart strategic play, it was just too much for the Heat to handle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the Pacers were playing chess while the Heat were playing checkers.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
It was just like they were always one step ahead,
Yeah,
always anticipating the next move.
exactly. Yeah, they were reading the game really well.
All right, so we've got these two incredible games, both showcasing some amazing talent and some really smart strategy. But you know what? I think we need to take a closer look at some of those specific plays that really defined these matchups. So let's do that when we come back after the break.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back. And we're ready to get into the nitty-gritty of those games, break down some of those key plays.
Absolutely.
Because it's one thing to talk about strategy, but it's another thing to actually see it in action, see how it unfolds on the court.
For sure.
So let's start with that Bucks-Nets game. We talked about how the Nets built up this early lead.
Right.
how did they manage to do that? I mean, what were some of the specific plays or strategies that really worked for them?
Well, I think one of the keys to their success was their ability to exploit mismatches.
Mismatches. Okay, now for those of us who aren't like, basketball experts,
Right.
what do you mean by mismatches?
Yeah, so basically it means recognizing when a player on your team has a significant advantage over the defender they're up against.
Okay.
So, for example, Dennis Schroeder. I mean, he was consistently able to use his speed and agility to just blow past his defender
Oh, okay.
and, either score himself or create an open shot for a teammate.
Right.
And the Bucks, they just couldn't adjust their defense quickly enough to counter those moves.
So it's like they were anticipating, the Nets were anticipating those weaknesses in the Bucks defense.
Exactly.
And they were like setting up plays to like take advantage of those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were really playing a smart game.
It's like chess, basketball chess.
It is. It is.
Okay, now on the other hand, the Bucks, despite having Giannis,
Right.
they sometimes struggle to create those same kinds of advantageous situations.
Right. And they kind of fell into a pattern of, relying on Giannis to just power through the Nets defense.
Right, right.
And while that can work sometimes, it's not a sustainable strategy for an entire game.
No, because you become predictable.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to the Heat Pacers game now.
Okay.
The Pacers, we talked about their offense,
Yes.
that fast-paced, like fluid offense.
Yeah.
How did that translate into actual plays on the court?
Well, I think a big part of it was ball movement.
Okay.
They were constantly moving the ball, making quick passes,
Yeah.
finding the open man.
Yeah.
And it just kept the Heat's defense on their toes.
Yeah.
They were always scrambling, trying to catch up.
Right.
And, you can't underestimate the role of Tyrese Halliburton in all of this.
Yeah, his 15 assists. I
I
mean,
know, it's incredible.
talk about like seeing the court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't just focused on scoring himself. He was setting up his teammates,
Yeah.
creating opportunities for them.
Right, right. And it seemed like, they weren't just playing as individuals, they were playing as a unit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It was like this, like a well-rehearsed dance,
I love that analogy, yeah.
Everybody knew where they were supposed to be, when they were supposed to be there.
And, there were these moments where, like, they would make 3, 4 quick passes, swing the ball around the perimeter,
Yeah.
and then, boom, wide open three-pointer. It
Right.
was beautiful to watch.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about offense, but what about defense?
Yeah.
Were there any standout defensive plays that you remember?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go back to the Nets for a minute.
Okay.
In those final minutes against the Bucks, their defense was just phenomenal.
I mean, how do you shut down Giannis?
I know, right? It's almost impossible. But they managed to do it.
How?
Well, they started double-teaming him whenever he got the ball in the post,
Okay.
which forced him to pass.
Right.
And then when he did drive towards the basket, they had, like, multiple defenders swarming him,
Oh.
cutting off his angles, making it so difficult to get a clean shot.
So they turned his strength against him, basically.
Exactly. They knew they couldn't stop him one-on-one, so they
Right.
made it a team effort,
Wow.
and it worked.
Okay, now what about the Pacers? Their defense, was it kind of the same approach?
It was a little different. It wasn't so much about specific plays as it was about their overall intensity and hustle.
Okay.
They were just relentless. They were always pressuring the Heat's ball handlers,
Right.
forcing them into making quick decisions, and that led to a lot of turnovers.
So they were basically like wearing down the Heat with their energy, their pressure.
Exactly, yeah. They disrupted their flow, prevented them from getting into any kind of rhythm.
Okay, so two different defensive strategies, both effective in their own way.
Yeah, that's the beauty of basketball, There's no one right way to play.
It's like a mental chess match,
It is. It is.
You're always trying to outsmart your opponent.
That's right.
Okay, well, we've been talking a lot about these games, but I think it's time to zoom out a little bit
Okay.
and talk about the bigger picture. What do these games tell us about the Eastern Conference as a whole?
Right.
So let's do that when we come back after a quick break. Okay, so we're back. And we've talked about these two amazing games, broken down the plays, analyzed the stats.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What do these games tell us about the Eastern Conference as a whole this season?
Well, I think the Nets win over the Bucks. It's a statement.
Okay.
They're not just a team to watch, they're a contender.
Yeah.
Even without, this star-studded roster, they've got depth, talent. They're playing with a lot of confidence.
Right. And it seems like they found a new recipe for success, right? One that emphasizes teamwork and strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And that makes them really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Opponents can't just focus on shutting down one or two players.
Right.
You have to account for everyone on the court. and that makes them really unpredictable.
Okay, so what about the Bucks, though? I mean, they're still a powerhouse with Giannis.
Right.
Should they be worried after this loss to the Nets?
I don't know if I'd say worried, but they should definitely take note.
Okay,
The Nets expose some vulnerabilities, like their reliance on Giannis.
right.
If they want to stay on top, they need to find more ways to get other players involved.
Yeah, they need to diversify their offense a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about the Pacers, their win against the Heat. I mean, pretty dominant performance.
They
What
were.
does this tell us about their position in the East?
Well, I think the Pacers are a team that a lot of people underestimated.
Yeah.
But with Halliburton playing at this level, with the supporting cast they have,
Yeah.
they're proving that they're not just there to participate.
Right.
They're there to compete.
Okay, so big picture. If you had to sum up the Eastern Conference based on these two games.
I'd say the East is wide open this year.
Yeah.
There are a lot of teams that could make a deep playoff run.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bucks are still strong. The Nets are emerging as a real threat. The Pacers are exceeding expectations.
Right, and you can't forget about the Celtics, the 76ers.
Exactly. It's going to be an exciting season.
It sounds like it. I mean, every game matters.
It does. Every game matters.
Any team could shake things up.
Absolutely.
So if there was one takeaway you wanted our listeners to get from this deep dive.
I'd say the NBA is evolving.
How so?
Well, we're seeing a shift away from this, star-driven model.
Okay.
Teams are realizing that to be successful, you need a cohesive unit.
Right?
You need everyone contributing, understanding their roles.
It's not just about individual talent anymore.
Exactly. It's about teamwork. It's about strategy.
It's a whole new ball game.
It is. It is.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into these two epic Eastern Conference matchups.
Great games.
I think we've only scratched the surface, but hopefully we've given you some things to think about. So until next time, keep watching those games, and we'll be back with more deep dives into the world of basketball.
Sounds good.